worried about that, but in this way it didn't really work out brilliantly for him either.
Now, well, this is a smaller map. This is a map we've seen a lot of the aggressive plays on. Let's see what comes out of these guys now. In the top right, the blue Protoss player went for the expansion last game, didn't quite cut it. He is MC.
This man was extremely aggressive on our last map. We will see if he's going to continue that trend. He is of course representing CJ Entus. It is Hero.
And so far in the 2 games that we've seen of this series, it's come down largely to the player expanding, trying to hold on to it, and what weird things you can do to get an advantage. And I just want to say again,
the oldest rule in the PvP playbook: the player that expands first loses. That's definitely not really true anymore. You know, in Wings of Liberty I could kind of dig into that statement, but now it's not really true anymore. But I guess this series is an exception.
It's manageable at times. It's really crazy how just that first Stalker that Hero made, immediately with just 1 unit on the field, just starts to poke that Nexus. And normally you think, okay, he's going to leave once I have some units out. It's not going to be a big deal. But committing straight away with the second one and then warping in your first 3 units to just constantly put that pressure on.
Yeah, he sent that first probe across the map to drop that proxy pylon extremely quick as well, because even before his warp gates were ready or Blink was ready, he already had that pylon up and running. I guess he was just very confident that MC would never run down, because nobody really wants to run away from their base with sentries. The sentries are slow and they're easy to be picked off in the middle of the map.
Interesting to note, Hero has scouted his main base and his natural expansion for any potential proxies that might have popped up. Of course, Hero knows all about losing very important matches to proxies in this matchup.
Yeah, that's something that happens to you once and never again.
And MC's like, well, I don't need to scout my main. I'm not super worried about it. Not quite as likely to come up. Hero's busted it out every now and again, but he's not really known for it in the way that some of his opponents have been. And he's going to send out a late scout. Does Hero see anything unusual here? 6 probes on gas, not really crazy in PvP.
Exactly, not that crazy. You could say the only thing that he doesn't have to worry about too much is that MC is going to open up with a very aggressive 3 gate. That doesn't really seem to be the case. MC is mining too much gas for that. Other than that, it's really hard to make a proper read. Hero did get his 2nd gate already in his main base. MC is going to see this. There are still many ways to follow this up. Most common, I would still say, is a Twilight, but Stargate is possible, or even an Expand would be possible. Or if Hero really wants to think out of the box, he could add 1 more gateway. Hero has indeed done a reasonable amount of 3 gate openings in some of the games that we casted of him just a couple of months ago, but I'm not expecting that from him.
Yeah, it's been quite a while. These, you know, the cast spell off season really gives these guys a lot of time. They don't have to quite worry about preparing for those specific matchups, but this is one of those exceptions because of how much time you get between your WCS seasons finishing up and the actual finals beginning.
Interesting that the Twilight consoles are pretty much going down on identical moments, while Hero had a 2-gate opening and MC had just had a single gate opening, but I guess Hero delayed his Stalkers a little bit. There's really not a lot of difference between them, especially not when the timings play out like this. It's more just that Hero played it a tiny bit more safe, which I'm not surprised by at all. MC is a guy, he has no fear, you know, he's played at so many tournaments. If he feels something is the right build, he's just gonna go for it. MC is never worried about what could potentially kill him. He's only thinking about what he will kill his opponent with.
And he's very, very confident when it comes to his build order choices. And in a matchup like this where, you know, stepping out of your base at the wrong time, if you missed something, could mean an Oracle in your mineral line, and we know how fast Oracles can kill workers. He's not afraid to take those big risks. We're gonna have a robotics facility follow up to the Blink from Hero. Is he potentially worried about a Dark Shrine, or does he just want to have a follow-up?
Yeah, I mean, you do have to be worried about it, but I think it's indeed just a follow-up as well. Blink Stalkers gain a lot of having an observer out on the map will allow you to blink into the main base and whatnot. Hero has his Mothership Core in a very interesting position. He's been scouting all the time, and he has spotted the fact that MC did not try to take an expand, doesn't really have any units there either, so he's probably a little bit confused. Of course, we know that Hero doesn't have too much to worry about. It's pretty much the same thing that he's doing. The only difference is that I think MC is going to warp in a few more Stalkers initially than Hero is. Of course, if Hero picks up on this, he should still be more than fine. But this Mothership Core being so far out of position also means that if he recalls, he won't have any energy to Photon Overcharge. It might actually be a good move to send this Mothership Core to the main base of MC and force a defensive warp in. Because any Stalker is really going to be very important, and having 10 Stalkers or 8 makes a pretty big difference.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. He's actually already bringing some of these Stalkers back into his own main base.
Yeah, but he has two pylons already, which is
Yeah.
also a commitment. You know, especially when you're doing the exact same build as your opponent, 200 minerals is definitely an investment that you think of. I think he's going to blink forward and try to catch that Mothership Core, and he will get it.
Great
Good
pickup.
job there. Yeah, I think he just saw that Mothership Core, barely caught a glimpse of it, and he didn't think twice, blinked to it immediately. Pretty expensive loss for Hero, but at least he knows what he's playing against.
Yeah, it's a tough spot to be in a weird way, because MC does get the Nexus faster, the robotics facility is
Ooh.
later, but you don't have that Mothership Core.
This
So
is-
no ability to recall and no photon overcharge at home.
Yeah, Hero is also getting his 4th gateway, so he's able to warp in more Stalkers right now than MC is if he would decide to become aggressive. And he's probably going to spot with his Observer that MC is expanding. But, you know, since both players are getting Immortals already, I don't think it's very wise to just go ham on your Blink Stalkers right now, because they are still very expensive units, and they will delay everything else that you want to do.
Yeah, the gas costs really slow down any further tech if you want to get a robotics bay or move into any type of Archon army-based composition. So at this point, what is the focus here? What can either player do to try to get a lead against the other?
Yeah.
Maybe skimp on warp-ins, or at what point do we see a Forge go down?
Probably pretty soon, Nate. I'm expecting a Forge in the near future. There you go. Hero is warping in his Forge right now, and MC is doing the exact same thing. This is that phase in the game where you just want to get as many probes out as possible. You want to get your Immortal count up. You really don't want to warp in too many Zealots or Stalkers. Those things can wait you know, just save it. Don't use your resources on that in this phase in the game. But it is very important to scout non-stop, because there are some crazy Protoss builds where, you know, everything looks standard, looks solid, and then suddenly there's a massive Protoss army knocking on your front door while you've been chrono boosting probes out like crazy. And then your opponent suddenly stopped probe production. So it is really important, but as long as you scout, you pretty much just want to do the same thing as your opponent. You want to try to be greedy, but make sure that you scout.
All right. There's only one pylon out on the map for MC. Nice job picking off that Observer of Hero. We saw him use the Sentry's
nice.
energy for Hallucinated Phoenix to scout. So he's got a decent read on what Hero is up to, and now we see the robotics base,
Yeah.
so Colossus.
And as soon as he picked off that Observer as well, he dropped that Robo Bay. I was curious about it. Like, I still love my Colossus in this matchup, but I know a lot of Protoss players kind of like to just go straight into Archons. With Archons, you can do some crazy timings as well, because Colossus are great, but a single Colossus is not really a game changer in
No.
PvP. It's not like you're playing against Marines. 2 Colossus with Thermal Lens, that's when things start to matter. And of course, as soon as you have 3 Colossus, that's when the party truly starts if you're playing against Archon and Immortal. But we see Robo Base going down on either side, so most likely we are engaging ourselves, we're preparing ourselves for a relatively slow mid game. This is kind of, there's just not too much you can do in PvP, because the only action is going on in your own main. So sending out 4 Stalkers and trying to blink into a main base, picking off probes, is not a very smart decision, because most likely you won't get more than 2 or 3. So you rather save those Stalkers for a little later, when armies actually start moving out on the map, and then you can start going on probe hunts and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, both players are now starting off that Colossus production. The +1's going to finish up soon for both of them. A third Nexus does get spotted by MC's Hallucination, and MC takes a very late
What?
4th gas, but he's just moving 3 Immortals out. Those are expensive, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
Walking alone.
I mean, it's unlikely that a bunch of Stalkers will blink into 3 Immortals. In general, that's not recommended.
It's an interesting
Yeah.
scout.
But if there would somehow be a sentry or 2 as well, that's when you start being truly sad as the Immortal player. But yeah, MC does those things. Just MC things.
Yeah, I mean, Hero has a scout on the 3rd base of MC, so he knows at this point, as long as he doesn't make any big mistakes, he just needs to defend, and he'll have enough of an advantage through economy later on to, you know, win and trade better, or at least be able to resupply his army faster. MC's adding on gates. Is this the time to attack for him, or is he just going to take a very late
Yeah, I
third?
mean, like, it was truly, the ball was in MC's corner. It was his decision. He could have also just expanded, because he scouted that Nexus pretty quick. Or, yes, he's gonna go a little crazy. He does have 1 Immortal advantage, and he's slightly ahead in the Colossus production, but I feel by the time that MC marches across the map, Heroes should have the same amount of Colossus, and attacking in PvP without a significant advantage is pretty difficult. MC has a few more supply when it comes down to army supply, but I don't know. I think this is difficult to make it work because there will be most likely a photon overcharge and a time warp, and of course Hero is going to be the defensive player, so he's going to put his army in a pretty strong defensive position. That's also a warp in you don't really want to make. I don't think you really want to warp in 3 Stalkers. I guess Stalkers will make their way quickly to the other side of the map. MC is just going to go for it. He's going to try to hammer it down, and Hero will most likely try to defend this expand. And if MC doesn't kill it or doesn't win the fight, he's in trouble.
Yeah, this is a very important couple of moments here. Of course, force fields don't usually have as much of an impact since those Colossi can smash them, but working on that Nexus now. Most of the shields are gone, but he's taking some fire on his army. Time warps the opposing Colossi, and they're just duking it out. But that Nexus does add a lot of extra firepower and also drags some of the attention of MC's army away from Heroes.
Yep, the time warp from MC was good though, and he still has an army supply advantage. He's actually going to go for the forward blink, and only 1 Immortal is remaining, but it seems like these Colossus won't die just yet. But MC has done a very good job so far in keeping most of his units alive. He still had an army supply, loses his observer there, but that's not the end of the world, and Hero is going to have to sacrifice this base. What a great attack by MC.
Yeah, really getting his money's worth there.
Yeah. Doesn't win the game just yet though. If I were him, I would retreat, and I think that's exactly what MC is going to do, because it's very hard to attack into 4 Colossus, especially when one of your own Colossus is very low on HP.
So at this point, I mean, the biggest difference as far as the armies go at the end of that battle, you have the 4 Colossi, as you mentioned, very powerful. You don't have quite as much to anchor that. You don't have as many gateway units. You lose the Immortal backbone that can wreck the Stalkers. Can Hero actually make an attack work at this point? I feel like this army for MC is a little bit beefy at the moment.
It will all come down to control. Maybe if he can get a free Immortal, that would be a great start. They're dead even in army supply, at least they were a second ago. Now MC warped in a few more units. I think it's very hard for Hero to attack up this ramp. He barely has an army. His army are those 4 Colossus. Now a few reinforcements are arriving. Of course, Archons are great. They have a lot of HP. MC only has a single Archon. Hero has 2. Tables are turned.
Yeah, well, those Zealots, when you're facing the splash damage combined between Archons and Colossi, things get a little bit dicey, to say the least.
Hero did indeed have a minor upgrade advantage as well. He was on +2, while MC's +2 is still spinning. It's more than halfway done though, but Hero doesn't want to risk it, which I could understand.
Yeah, he still has a scout on the 3rd base, and he also has the Warp Prism now to help shut down MC's ability to actually leave his base.
And I feel that the attack that MC made, that's an attack, you know, on the 3rd base that could work once, but the longer it goes on, it's very unlikely that you're able to kill that base again. Good snipe there on the Warp Prism. That's really going to make MC's life a little bit easier, so he doesn't have to leave any units at home at all. And 2 base all the way, 44 workers, Nate.
That's some might say that's one of the stories of MC. These long drawn out 2 base scenarios. And you know, Hero, we talked about this earlier, 3rd Nexus is done. Unless MC comes and smashes it down again, that economic advantage just spirals out of control. You can afford enough extra minerals for Zealots to tank your army, the Gaslets your Archons, and suddenly you've got a much more powerful army.
Yeah, what I think is going to be extremely difficult for Hero in the for MC in the next engagement is to get close to these Colossus. In the previous engagement, MC still had a lot of Stalkers and stuff, so that's a dangerous forward blink. Ends up losing at least 1, maybe 2 Stalkers. No, I think it's just going to be 1. But it was kind of those fight where, okay, we trade out our units and then I can forward blink and I can start chasing your Colossus. Now I'm not sure how MC is supposed to get on top of these Colossus unless he would land a great time warp. But it's going to get pretty difficult. He's going to run up this ramp. Hero wants to defend all the way back into his natural.
Yeah, it takes the Archon immediately in this fight. Now the Colossi are spread very nicely for MC, but those Archons have shredded all of the Zealot forces, and they made up a lot of MC's army. But Hero, another Colossus coming out, is once again left with just his robotics units against a bit of a better mix from his opponent. However, with the defensive warping position, I don't think there's a pylon very close here for Hero. He's warping in all the way from the 4th of his opponent.
Yeah, MC's reinforcements are far away, but he's so far having the upper hand in this engagement, and now his Colossus were in a much better position. He picked off one of these Colossus. Some of his own are so low in HP though, but it really looks like MC is taking control of this battle and is taking control of the natural from Hero. Look at how low HP these units are.
Yeah, the Colossi aren't even able to get their hits off. The Warp Prism comes in for MC, allowing him to reinforce more quickly. Hero, though, those Zealots are really getting in the sides of these Colossi.
That one Archon that's about to arrive for here, this is like the reinforcements. Hero has arrived. Here. He's gonna soak up quite a few Colossus volleys. That will allow the Colossus from MC to get close.
My goodness.
But he loses them against Zealots. This is insane.
MC had a 30 supply lead just seconds ago, and now the control from Hero has really allowed him to stay alive in this fight. Kills off the
Wow.
Archon, and that Colossus with
Wow.
its range is untouchable. He still has his third base.
What a hold by Hero. It looked very, very dicey for the longest amount of time. All of his Colossus were like clumped up behind the Templar Archon. Oh, one of the Archons was trapped as well. Very unfortunate.
You know what
Wow.
else? MC, his main base, is pretty much run dry.
Yeah.
The ability to reinforce during that battle, because of the third base for Hero, really allowed him to get those extra warp ins. Even though he was down on supply, he was able to rebuild more quickly than MC could.
Well, it really looked like that battle was swinging into MC's favor, especially when all those Colossus were clumped up, because every Protoss player hates that moment when your Colossus is standing one-on-one and the other player has his Colossus beautifully spread out and they get all these volleys off. But Hero did a phenomenal job in getting Zealots close to those Colossus, and right when MC thought this is my moment to kill the last two remaining Colossus of Hero, he actually lost his own because he was right-clicking on his Colossus. So the Zealots, they were uncontested, and those small Zealots took down the big boys.
Yeah, that's those times when those units that don't seem quite so significant can have the most impact, Roddy. Very, very nice play, and even like this, it loads up the Weakened Zealot. Maybe you can drop that to mess with the AI of an attacking force from Hero, who now wants to rebound off of the economy of his third base and say, well, MC, I know you're not mining as much as me. I think I can build enough units to knock you down.
Yeah, MC has 4 Archons, but the Colossus is truly the most important unit in this phase in the game with these army compositions. So it's going to be extremely tough for MC to hang in there now. That attack was pretty much everything or nothing, and it really looked like it was everything for the longest amount of time. But CJ and his Hero just hang in there like an absolute champ and is now in a great position himself.
Yeah, Hero's posturing himself on top of this third base. Of course, the Zealots are going to use their charge on this. The Warp Prism comes in from behind. He wants to drop on top of the Colossi to keep them from fighting the main army. But, oh, you do not want to lose that Warp Prism.
He's going to drop a couple of Zealots, but I'm afraid that these Zealots will die before the rest of the army of Hero
Yeah, another
arrives.
Colossus shows up for Hero, and now this third base looks even more and more in trouble. Units getting picked off left and right. And yeah, with the reinforcing Archon and just this much of a good spread, this many forces from Hero, MC's army is crumbling. GG is called.